Lesson of week 8, you are looking at the living land lesson. And for this lesson and for the next lesson, we're going to be focusing on our agriculture unit. And so we're going to do just kind of a brief overview of agriculture, what it is, how it has influenced human, populations, and then you're going to be doing the living land story map assignment. So as I take a look at, as we think a little bit about what agriculture is and what we're going to be learning in this lesson as well as in the next lesson. So agricultural geography is really taking a look at how humans use land to feed themselves. And so agriculture is farming. So when we talk about agriculture, we really mean farming, but farming is different than just gathering and fruits and vegetables and hunting, because plants and animals have been domesticated over time. And domestication is a long-term process. So when we think about domestication, you might think of, I have a pet or a dog. But plants and animals have both been domesticated for human use. And it's a really long-term process that started about 10,000 years ago, in which humans selectively breed, protect, and care for unique plants and animals taken from the wild to create genetically distinct species that they can then cultivate themselves. So this is just like a kind of a overview of how domestication really takes place. But what would happen is, so this is actually how modern corn kind of develops. So modern corn doesn't grow in the wild, but there is a plant called teosinte that does grow. It's a large wild grass that produces small ears of maize or corn less than an inch long. And so over time, human beings, this is thousands of years ago, deliberately planted the seeds of the plants that were growing the largest. And then through the breeding of the plants, over time, it did develop into what we know today as, modern corn that we would actually eat. So domestication began in certain areas over the world. They developed first in places where people had enough food through hunting and gathering to remain in one place and really devote a considerable amount of time to the plant care. So places where people were already able to kind of not have to move around a whole lot, they were able to start, experimenting and to start investigating how they can grow their own plants and to change them. And then animals also to get domesticated. So animals, all domesticated animals, whether it be cows or horses or different, sheep and goats, those all came from wild animals. And over time, people selectively breeded those to create almost a new species of animals. So throughout, thousands of years, people started to settle down. They settled down into these villages. They were really farming communities, but the food supply was pretty unstable until about the 1800s, until about the 1800s, when new advances and increased food production led to better diets. So we start to see new farming methods in the 16, 17, 1800s. And remember that throughout that time period, this is when the population of the world really starts to grow. And the reason that it grows, first of all, is because people don't die as quick of rates as they did before. So when we start to see this population growth, the early part of the population growth is because people are better fed. And it's because of new advancements in technology and agriculture that start around this time period. And death rates start to go down. And people are not as needed as much on the farm, and people move to cities. They start working in factories. As we see, people moving to cities, then birth rates eventually come down. And this kind of brings us back to our demographic transition model. So for most of human history, people were hunting and gathering, or they were having very small scale, farming practices where, food supply was good one year maybe and bad the other year. But throughout the 16, 17, 1800s, really in starting the 1800s, death rates start to go down because food supply becomes much more stable. And then as people move away from the farm to the city, the birth rates start to come down to match the death rates. So death rates then eventually, in stage 4, we have countries that have highly mechanized farming, pretty good food supply. So we have this hugely growing population, and when we start to see the death rates come down, the population starts to burst and boom, and there's really big worries about being able to feed a rapidly growing population. However, not that everyone gets fed in equal ways because we have distribution problems, but the population of the world, actually, we do have enough food to feed everyone today. Not everyone is well fed, because of the ways in which there's an inequitable distribution of food worldwide. But we have learned since then, we've also learned new scientific methods of breeding, of fertilizing, and chemical pesticides. And we have developed even bigger and better seeds, use bigger and better fertilizers, and new mechanization and irrigation methods. Irrigation is watering of the fields. And so today we're going through we're going through another agricultural revolution, and it's called the Green Revolution, which a lot of the plants that we think of today are growing bigger and better through genetic modification, and we are able to feed a lot of people. However, there are quite a few detrimental effects to the environment in the process, especially the fertilizers and the chemical pesticides that are really harming the environment. So you're going to explore all of this in the Living Land assignment. So this is going to be a look at how humans use the Earth's limited land space, and particularly the amount of land that is used for agriculture. All this land that we're needing in order to feed our increasingly growing population. So I'm going to bring you to that assignment. So let's see here. Bring you to that assignment. It looks like this. You are going to open it up. It should be pretty self-explanatory, but there's a little introduction here. Then you're going to click on the link to access the story map. When you get to the story map, you're going to scroll down. You will notice really quickly, you'll notice some chapters so you'll notice some tabs of this story map. The first one is Earth's Land. Then you'll see all the way going forward. On the assignment, I do put like what section of the story map you need to be in for each of the questions. And so just make note of that. So if you do, work on this a little bit and then come back to it, know that in pink, you'll find all of the little tabs. You can click on those tabs to figure out where you were again. Then you're going to go through all the questions that you see, and everything that you see in yellow is something that you need to answer. So the first one just kind of fills up the charts. You don't need to answer anything over here. This is already filled out for you, but what is that land made up of or used for? And then they're going to talk about the takeaways all the way down. You're going to be answering the questions. Make sure that you're answering your questions in full sentences, unless it is just like a quick thing. So for example, the first, here you're going to have to just write the crop. You don't need to write that in full sentences, but over here you should write these in full sentences. So that is something so that is going to be your first assignment for agriculture. All right, have a great day. Let me know if you have any questions by coming to office hours or emailing me.